Welcome to the channel. As you can probably see from the screen today we're going to be talking about the Steam Deck. First off, happy birthday Steam Deck. As I'm recording this video, it is February the 25th, 2025, and might not go on the channel this day, but right now it is the Steam Deck's third birthday. Steam Deck was originally released February 25th, 2022. So, this video is going to be about, is the Steam Deck at 3 years old still worthy of a purchase in 2025? First off, if you're not familiar with the Steam Deck's specifications, there's actually two models right now. There is the original Steam Deck, the LCD model, which is the one that came out in 2022, and there's the revision. They don't really call it a completely new model, but it definitely has some improvements. Steam Deck OLED, which came out a little later. The Steam Deck OLED is the one that I have, and the one that you'll see in this video. But essentially, this machine has a custom AMD chip and 16 gigs of RAM. There's a 7.4-inch 800p screen. The OLED deck has a maximum refresh rate of 90 Hz, while the LCD version, even though the screen is the same resolution, it is limited to 60 Hz refresh rate. So there's a little difference there. My deck has 512 gigs, but over the 3 years the deck's been out, storage sizes range anywhere from like 64 gigs, which is a little on the small side, to a terabyte, which is nice and large, although the Steam Deck does sport a micro SD slot, which it is actually perfectly fine to run most games from. So you can just pop in another terabyte of storage on the micro SD and carry tons of games around with you. We have the operating system. This is actually one of the big draws of the Steam Deck, which is Steam OS based on Linux. And in fact, funny thing about it is this is so based on Linux, you can actually put it in desktop mode and be running a KDE desktop. You know, if you want to run a desktop on your handheld, I don't know, but the option is there. The OLED Steam Deck has a slightly improved battery over the original LCD. It's got a 50 watt-hour battery. I believe the original LCD is like 45 or something like that. And the mass, it does have a little weight to it. It's about 1.4 pounds. And the LCD deck weighs slightly more than the OLED one, according to Valve anyway. I don't have the original deck to do a mass comparison myself. I just got the OLED. But essentially that's a rundown of the specs of this device. Now, if you actually look at the device itself, you can see Valve has gone kind of all out with kind of control options here. You've got trackpads. You've got dual trackpads. One of the only devices you can get that has that. I am not yet completely sold on the trackpads, although there are people that swear by these things. Funny thing is this handheld doesn't run Windows by default, and I have a Legion Go. It has one trackpad, not two, and I find that I use the trackpad to navigate around Windows on the Legion Go more than I use it for actual gaming. So, a lot of people swear by these trackpads. I'm not completely converted yet, but maybe it will grow on me in time. You've got a control setup that focuses all of the controls up here, so when you're holding it, everything is nice and within reach. And you've got the usual, analog buttons here. You got your triggers. You also have 4 additional buttons on the back. So there are a ton of control options on the Steam Deck. And as far as holding the thing, for a handheld of this size, and of course it looks huge on the screen right now because, well, I've kind of zoomed in on it. Here is an Odin 2 for reference. So Steam Deck is large, although these days with the advent of the new MSI Claw and the Legion Go, the 8-inch devices, Steam Deck doesn't seem so big. But for a device this size, it's actually really comfortable to use for the kind of games I play. I tend to play games focused on using the analog sticks for control, and the D-pad is used more for, menu selection and things like that. I think the D-pad's all right, but this is a handheld that's obviously been designed with a lot of modern games like the ones that you see on my screen here, in mind. So very comfortable device to hold. I mean, I was skeptical about the Steam Deck at first, partly because, oh my God, it's so huge relative to, me being used to like a PSP and a Vita. So, yeah, compared to the PlayStation Portable, the deck is pretty large. But I was converted pretty quickly because despite the device's large size, Valve actually paid attention to ergonomics here. And it's a very comfortable device to hold. It doesn't actually feel as heavy in the hand as, you read the specs and you say, oh, this is 1.4 pounds. But it doesn't feel like that when you're holding it. I can hold this device for a long time. Basically, for a modern game, I can hold it till the battery drains out. And still comfortable. So, very comfortable device. But it has been out for a number of years now. So, these days, what kind of price can you expect to pay for a Steam Deck? So, now you have the option on Valve's website to either buy a Steam Deck new or you can buy a refurb. And if you're buying right now, I would highly recommend getting the refurb just to save the money, because the refurbs are pretty much as good as buying one new. And they're from Valve directly, so you still get the same warranty, same service. So I went and looked up the prices from Valve on a couple of the models. This isn't all of them, because there's a lot of storage options. And by the way, for the most part, the differences in the deck, you can select OLED versus LCD screen, and a few of the models that tend to have the highest storage will also have a matte screen instead of a reflective, so they have this etched glass screen. I haven't seen that in person, so I can't really comment on how well that looks, but that is an option. And you can select different storage sizes, but all of the decks have the same processor, essentially, and they have the same RAM. So you're going to get pretty similar performance no matter what deck you select. But here's a couple of models here. The kind of standard deck these days is the 256 gigabyte LCD version, which is about $400 new, but $320 refurb. And I think really if you're going to get the LCD deck, I think I would go for the refurb there. The OLED deck, which is what I have, and I mean, it's early in the video, but I think it's a really nice device. $549 new, but $439 refurbished. Now the thing is, Valve stocks these things every now and then. They tend to go pretty fast when the OLED decks show up in the refurb pile on Valve site. Sometimes you got a couple hours that you can buy one, and $439. I think that's an outstanding deal for an OLED handheld PC. I don't think you can beat that anywhere right now. And if you're really budget conscious, this model's been discontinued, so the only way you can get this through Valve is refurb, but you can get a 64 gigabyte LCD deck for $279. And that's a pretty hard price to beat for getting a PC as capable as the Steam Deck is. But you can only get that refurb, and you will definitely be wanting to either update the internal SSD, or you can just slap in a 1 to 2 terabyte micro SD card, and you'd honestly be good to go for most games. In my testing of the deck, you don't normally notice that much of a difference whether the game is stored on the micro SD card or whether it's stored on internal storage. If the game loads a lot, then yeah, you're going to see differences there. It takes longer to load and to patch, but during most gameplay, you can play off the micro SD and it works fine. So pricing here, you can go for the $549 brand new OLED, or if you wait around for Valve to restock, $279 for the original 64 gigabyte Steam Deck is definitely a very budget-friendly option. I mean, there's a lot of Android handhelds that cost more than that. And pretty much none of them are as capable as the Steam Deck is. We're going to take a look at gameplay footage from several games and emulators. But one thing I wanted to show you here is that one big criticism of a lot of PC handhelds is the battery life isn't so good, and that can certainly apply to the Steam Deck as well as the others. But the Steam Deck provides a lot of built-in options for you to essentially control your battery use, and you can get a lot of mileage out of the battery in the Steam Deck by adjusting things like the TDP. Right now, I have this limited to 9 watts, which can still run this game pretty much at 60 frames per second. If I take the limiter off, it can go up to 15 watts, which is the maximum power that that the deck is going to draw. You can see the consumption here, 14 watts all total right now. I've got the screen brightness up higher than I would normally have it, just because we're filming under the bright lights here. And I also have the Wi-Fi on. You can turn the Wi-Fi off to save a little bit more battery as well. But, you know, this is the remake of Persona 3. It's not exactly the lightest game in the world anymore. And we can get usually a pretty decent frame rate limiting this to 9 or 10 watts. Or we can turn the limit off. We'll just use a little bit more battery, but the frame rate will be more consistent. But there's a fair number of settings that you can use to adjust how the game plays, and probably more importantly, how much battery life you get. In addition to the usual, let's turn the brightness down, let's turn the Wi-Fi off. But this control, all this is built in. You don't have to install any additional software to get at this. And one thing I found is apparently Valve has engineered this to run pretty well at lower power. You know, I have a couple other PC handhelds, and they're really more designed to run at the higher end of the power spectrum. So if you try lowering the TDP too much, they tend to crash. So my Ally, for example, can't reliably go below 10 watts without causing problems. This, you can bump it down to 3 watts. Now, this game is not going to run at any more than like 12 frames per second at 3 watts, but you can actually knock it down and it won't crash. This is more important when you start talking about things like emulators, which don't require a whole lot of power. For example, I'm going to show you PlayStation 2 games playing at 5 watts. If you have this set to 5 watts and are playing PlayStation 2 games, you can get hours and hours of battery life out of the Steam Deck. Then it becomes the battery life of those Android devices people love because the battery life is so good. But this is a very nice feature of the Steam Deck that actually works. You can control the power a lot. Now, where it doesn't help you is if you don't have enough power to run the game. So if you're running something light, you can definitely squeeze a lot more battery life than you would think out of a Steam Deck. But let's take a look at some gameplay footage.
Let's just get this out of the way. Yes, most of my merchandise was ripped from the hands of dead adventurers.
front of him! Shoot, black bitches! Turrets kill!
Let me know if anything catches your eye. 2 words, my friend. No re-
Don't take care now! Take a look at me, little friend! On the house! Didn't anyone teach you how to fight?
Another defeated bridge.
Let's have a chat, shall we? Finger's getting tired over here.
So, it's the real deal from here.
Looks easy to get.
Can you all hear me?
Whoa! Is it?
I'll be providing audio backup.
Wait, are you saying
It's my the structure of Tartarus action. I'd like to join you up there, but we need...
That's even more.
Now, they shouldn't be you'll get the hang...
Right.
What?
Right. Let's begin. Defeat all the I'll support you as much as I can, but it's up to you to learn something out there. Hold on. This is... All right. When faced with an enemy, the second option is to use... Knowing how personas work...
What to do?
Okay, looks like I'm up. Here goes. Check this out.
Yeah.
Well done, Eeyore. Talk about two. You'll...
Got it.
Good. Let's continue exploring. Another... The back... All right. Most enemies have an elemental effect. Not only that, knocking down an...
Weaknesses, huh?
Wait! Just point it to my head and pull the trigger. I can do this!
Oh, you're not...
That's it, talk about. You get...
I'll go with. This is it.
Well done. Keep that up. Fantastic work.
Totally. I can take my...
Can you try not being...
Great. Leader. I can still sense...
Yeah.
The heck?
Yes. Sometimes they can take...
Oh, sweet! Hell yeah!
That looks...
Hey.
Roger. Probably some cyber psycho again, but I'll handle it. Hey, any update on my overtime bonus? Dispatch?
Suspect's vehicle has been located. Details have been sent. All units be advised. Suspect remains in the vicinity.
Let's get this over with.
Stupid!
Get him! Over!
Demon Fang! Like that! Demon Fang!
Get him!
Demon Fang! Demon Fang!
Get him!
Demon Fang!
Get him! Whistling! And don't come back! Let's get this over with.
Sonic!
Get him!
Sonic Thrust! Sonic Thrust!
Get him! Whistling! On your feet!
Just as I expected.
Don't you guys let up? Get him! Whistling! Found your
Sonic Thrust! Sonic Thrust!
Get him! Whistling!
Like that!
Get him! Whistling!
No way! Demon Fang! Is everyone all right? real fight!
What do you think you're doing? That hurts! Oh, please! If you'll only spare my life!
That was fun! A real fight! All right!
Who are you, kid? What do you want? This...
I don't want to fight you guys. I just want to know if you've seen a little boy around.
A little... Oh, you... Yeah, he came around here blabbering.
Then what did he do?
Being the kind-hearted fellas we are...
What?
It's the kid's own fault. Don't worry. He'll learn it's better to join us than... It's a shame. The apple don't fall far from the...
Rotten little...
Whoa there! Didn't I just say you can't...
Punks. What gives you the right?
Looks like we got another village in...
Haha, a real fight! That was easy.
So Nicholas is locked up somewhere in here.
So we've talked about the Steam Deck some, and we've seen some gameplay footage. So let's talk about what the Steam Deck has going for it here in 2025. And I think one major pro for the Steam Deck that particularly it depends on what you're wanting to do with it. But the low power modes being easy to access and being actually reliable is something that the Steam Deck has that a lot of these other PC handhelds don't. So being able to control the battery life, being able to really stretch the battery out for things like, retro game emulation is a pretty strong pro in favor of the Steam Deck, even in 2025. Plus, it's also hard to oversell the console-like software experience of the Steam Deck. The deck, when you're working with Windows, you have to constantly fiddle with stuff. And you have to deal with, the Windows interface is not really designed for handhelds or game systems. It's more designed for using Microsoft Office than anything else. So you have to deal with, Windows not really being friendly to smaller handheld devices like the Steam Deck and like the Ally and so forth. And the various manufacturers have come up with interfaces, Asus has Armory Crate, Lenovo has their front end, and so does MSI for the Claw. But I don't think any of them are as polished and work as well as SteamOS does on the Steam Deck. If you're looking for a more pick up and play experience for most games, it is hard to beat what they give you here on the Steam Deck. Also, there are things like suspend. I don't worry about suspending the Steam Deck. You know, if I'm playing a game, I can just hit the power button, come back to it later, and the vast majority of the time it just works. Unlike suspending on a Windows handheld. I mean, there it's pretty much a crapshoot. Does it work? Does it not? Do you get weird glitches when you resume? So, you know, that's another point in favor of the kind of Steam experience here. Stuff like suspend working. So, I'm playing Star Ocean, I put it on suspend, come back to it the next day, works fine, hasn't even drained a whole lot of battery. So, you get a good experience, suspend and resume on here, and you know, that sounds like a small thing, but you know, it feels huge because it's not like, oh, I have to make a production of shutting everything down and all that like I might on a Windows handheld. So just hit the power button, come back later. Also, you know, the Steam Deck still gets regular support, regular updates. You know, you know, they're working on getting compatibility with games up. So, you know, it's a nice experience. Valve has definitely supported the Steam Deck very well. So that's another, and they're still doing it. So that's a consideration with, you know, getting this device in 2025. It's like, hey, it's still, even though it's a couple of years old now, it's still current. It's still being well supported. And you can probably expect that in the near future as well. Now, that said, there are definitely things that, you know, the Steam Deck is not so good at anymore, being a 3-year-old handheld. If you're getting the LCD model, the LCD screen on the deck is not as good as the screen that you'll find on something like the MSI Claw or the ROG Ally. You know, it's a lower refresh rate. It's just not as good of a quality screen. But, you know, it's fine. It's just that it's not as good as some of the current options. Also, you know, I would really recommend getting the OLED over the LCD. The screen differences, even between the Steam Deck OLED and some of the competitors that use LCD screens, like the Claw, like the ROG Ally. You know, there you can see definitely a noticeable difference, particularly if you're playing in the dark. If you're playing with the dark, this OLED looks great. Now, so the LCD screen isn't the best in modern terms anymore. The other thing is the real probably consideration on whether or not you should get a Steam Deck is how powerful a device do you actually need. So the Steam Deck is pretty much limited to 15 watts on its chip, and that goes a long way, particularly because SteamOS is a little bit more optimized for gaming than Windows is. But, you know, some of the latest games, you're just not going to get the kind of frame rates that you might want. You know, if you have to have 60 frames per second for every game, Steam Deck might not be for you, particularly if you're interested in you know, brand new games. So Steam Deck is more suitable to lighter and maybe a little bit older games where it works pretty well, but it is showing its age a bit in terms of the actual just raw CPU power and GPU power for that matter. Also, there are some cons associated with this thing coming with SteamOS. If you're heavily into multiplayer games, some of the anti-cheat software just isn't really working on the deck. So you may have problems with multiplayer if you're really into that. Personally, I think a handheld is better for single player experiences, but you know, definitely look into specific games if you want to play them on the deck to see if the anti-cheat is the problem and the multiplayer works properly. You know, you don't really have that issue with Windows because all of those anti-cheat systems are built for Windows anyway. Technically, you can install Windows on the deck, but you probably don't want to. You kind of ruin all the advantages of SteamOS if you just say, oh, I'm going to slap Windows on it because one particular game has an anti-cheat. But, you know, there are some cons here, and I think just in conclusion, should you get a Steam Deck in 2025? The answer to that is it really depends on what you want to do. If you're into older games and retro gaming in particular, then the Steam Deck is still an excellent choice because a lot of the features of SteamOS are kind of geared towards that lower power gaming. If you are all about AAA's released this year, then maybe the Ally or the Claw or the Legion Go might be a little better choice. So I personally think, for what I do with it, I would definitely still consider the Steam Deck, particularly at the refurb prices. It is really hard to get, or maybe even impossible, to get a device with, it is lower resolution, but this high quality screen as you have on the Steam Deck OLED for under $500, which is what they're selling the OLED decks for, at least the 512 gig version refurbed. So that is my conclusion for should you buy a Steam Deck in 2025? Of course, it depends, but it's still a very solid device. And if you're aware of the limitations, you can certainly get a whole lot of gameplay out of this thing. If you like this video, remember to leave a like on it. Helps people find my stuff in the YouTube search. If you want to see more handheld gaming content or just gaming content in general, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in the next video.